persistence in the enterprise applications. What is the meaning of data persistence actually? What is the meaning of data persistence? No? Representing data permanently in the databases. It may be storing data in the database. It may be retrieving the data from database. It may be deleting the data in the databases. It may be updating the data in the databases, but that should be permanent. Whatever the operation we are performing, then that should be what they're permanent. Then it is called what their data persistence. To achieve data persistence, we'll perform a set of operations called persistence operations. In general, in the enterprise applications, what operations are persistence operations? No, CRUD operations. What are these CRUD operations actually? C or U D. C is what? Create or insert. R is what? Read or retrieve. U is what? Update. D is what? There delete. In the enterprise applications, to perform the persistence operations, we will use a set of techniques, set of technologies called persistence technologies. These are all terminologies only, not any other content. We are going to perform some operations by using, that means we are going to perform some operations in the database layer, data layer. They are nothing but what are the persistence operations. To perform these persistence operations, we have to use a set of technologies. The set of technologies are what they are? Persistence technologies. What are these persistence technologies in our content here? If we have to this, so many persistence technologies are available. First one is what? Serialization and deserialization in core Java. Next one is what? JDBC. Next one is what? ORM. I think we completed already serialization and deserialization persistence mechanism. And we completed already what their JDBC mechanism. Just 1 minute of time, I will talk about it. No, if we take that serialization and deserialization process there, in serialization and deserialization, first we created serializable object that we send it to the object output stream. Object output stream will perform what? Serialization, separate the data. The data will be submitted to the file output stream. File output stream will store the data into what file? No? Text file. Text file is a flat file. Flat file in the sense what their system hard disk. Hard disk is what their permanent storage. So data is stored in a permanent memory or not? My data is a permanent store or not? Storage or not? Data persistency here we achieved clearly. Through serialization, we are able to achieve data persistency effectively by storing the data in a particular flat file. Right. What is the meaning of deserialization? File input stream we have to create. Automated data will come to the file input stream. Right. Object input stream here we have to create. Data will be taken from file input stream to object input stream. Object input stream will perform the required deserialization. Deserialized object is available. Getting that object into Java program. There we are able to display the data clearly. Clear. Leave it. But some problems are available with this serialization and deserialization mechanisms. What are the various problems are available there? Tell me, what is the first one here? Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is a highly recommended for what? Standalone applications. Not recommended for what? Enterprise applications. Next one. Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is supporting only byte-oriented data only, not supporting what the other forms of the data. Serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism is providing only create, that means inserting data, retrieving data, create and retrieve operations only. But what about the other operations? No, the other persistence operations? No, I want to perform update operation, not possible. I want to perform delete operation, not possible. Only insert and read operations only we are going to perform. So all the operations are not guaranteed. That is one punch here. Next one is serialization and deserialization data persistence mechanism takes a lot of Java code to perform the simple database operations like create and read. Even though for create and read, lot of Java code here we have to write. Again, this is a burdenful thing for us clearly. Overall, these are the various problems here we are able to get with what they data like a serialization and deserialization mechanisms. To overcome these problems, we have to go with what their JDBC persistence mechanism. I think yesterday we started this topic, I think so. Right? Let me explore these points here, then after that I'll move on to the next point. JDBC. What is this JDBC actually? Database, Java database connectivity. It is a step-by-step process, or it is an API, or an abstraction, or a technology to connect with the databases from Java applications in order to perform the database operations from the Java applications. That is a simple point. What is the meaning of JDBC? In JDBC, what are the various steps we are going to use to perform the database operations now? First one is what? Load and register the driver. For that, we are using what? Class CLS is equal to class dot for name of driver class name we have to provide. Driver class name here we have to write. Establish the connection between Java application and database. Connection con is equal to driver manager dot get connection of three parameters here we are providing. What are the three parameters now? Driver URL, database username, database password. Next one is create either statement or a prepared statement or a callable statement object here we are creating. So statement test is equal to con dot create statement method here we are calling. Write and execute SQL queries. Now these three methods here we are going to use. One is execute query, execute update, and execute method. Where execute query method is for the sake of fetching the data, retrieving the data from database table. Where execute update method is for the sake of performing the database operations like insert operation, update operation, delete operation, and so on. Execute method can be used to perform both the operations. What are these both the operations actually? Both select operations and non-select operations. Both we are going to perform. Okay. Finally, what we provided here, close the resources. Finally, what we provided here, close the resources. This is what exactly the meaning of JDBC. But here my question is, how can we achieve data persistence through JDBC? In a JDBC, how it is possible to achieve this data persistence? If you observe the point, answer is very clear. Try to understand it now. In a JDBC, when we establish a connection, automatically connection will be in auto commit mode. What is this actually? Auto commit. What is the meaning of this auto commit now? When I submit an SQL query to the connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Connection will make the database engine to execute that query to store the result of that particular query inside the database permanently. Come again, what is the point I said to you? When I submit an SQL query to the connection will carry that SQL query to the database engine. Connection will make the database engine to execute that query and to store the results of that particular SQL query in the databases. Got it or not? Now the data will be stored into the database table permanently or temporarily. Permanently, as per the auto commit mode. As per what the auto commit mode, the data is going to be stored into the database table permanently. Storing the data in permanently, representing data in the databases permanently is nothing but what their data persistence. Clear? That is completed. Then in that way we are able to achieve it clearly. Next one is some problems are available with the JDBC data persistence. What are the various problems now? In JDBC data persistence mechanism, we have to provide a lot of boilerplate code. We have to provide a lot of what there boilerplate code. That is the repeatable code. Repeatable code. So a simple example. Out of all the 5 or 6 number of steps now, except write and execute SQL query, all the steps are repeatable steps. All the remaining steps are what? The repeatable steps at each and every application. So these steps, this code, whatever the code we have written to represent that repeatable steps now. That code is called boilerplate code. That code is called as what there? Boilerplate code. Understand it clearly. All right, sir. Lot of boilerplate code we have to write at each and every application. That's the main problem. Second one is what there? In a JDBC data persistence mechanism, we must write SQL queries explicitly. But whenever we are writing SQL queries, we must have knowledge on that SQL or not? We must have knowledge on what there? SQL. So Java developer must know SQL technology. Without having SQL queries awareness, we are unable to write SQL queries in our applications. Next one is, in JDBC data persistence mechanism, we will hard code the SQL queries. In JDBC, in write and execute SQL queries method, as a parameter to execute query, as a parameter to execute update, as a parameter to execute method, we are going to write that SQL queries directly or not? Directly we are writing SQL queries or not? There is nothing but what there? Hard coded SQL queries. Hard coding of what there? SQL queries. It is not suggestible in our applications clearly. Right, sir. Good. Next one is after that. In JDBC data persistence mechanisms, we have to focus on the driver management. Every time we have to check the driver name, driver class name, driver URLs, all we provided properly or not. So we need to focus on what? Driver management. Next one is, we need to have very good focus on what their connection management also. Connection management in the sense like what there, the connections are established properly or not, database username and password we provided properly or not. If it is connection pooling mechanism now, whether we are getting connection objects effectively or not, that everything here we need to check clearly. Yes, sir. All of you are getting my point or not? That is one point here. Of course, I want to add one more point here. Observe carefully. JDBC data persistence mechanism. JDBC data persistence mechanism is a database dependent mechanism. Database dependent mechanism. How, sir? How can you say that it is a database dependent? No. First of all, tell me, number of databases are available in outside. So many databases are available. Oracle is one database. MySQL is another database. Like SQL Server is another database. Postgres SQL is another database. Like so many databases are available. Got it or not? Now tell me, SQL queries we are going to write to perform the database operations. These SQL queries are same in all the databases or variable from one database to another database. That means what I am asking there, SQL queries are dependent on the databases or independent on the databases. Simple example. Simple example. You have to answer for my question. Create a table. Now inside this create a table. Alright, table. Now I need to provide table details. Create a table. EMP. ENO. Observe carefully. ENO. Number 5. Primary key. Comma. E-name. Varchar of 10, comma, E-cell, float of 5. Next one is after that, EADDR, varchar of 10. This is the query here we provided. Now tell me, in this query, what is this number actually? Data type. Varchar is what there? Varchar 2, for example, data type. Here also varchar 2 data type. Am I right or not? Now tell me, these data types are specific to which database? No, Oracle database. These data types are specific to what there? Oracle database. Is it possible to execute this query in MySQL database? Is it possible to run these queries in MySQL? Not possible. Not possible. Why? Because in MySQL, in place of number, we have to use int. In place of varchar 2, we have to use what there? Char. The data types are varied or not? Data types are different or not? Come on, guys. Understand my point here. Okay. So now tell me, by this, what we are getting there clearly, what you are understanding, SQL queries are dependent on the databases or not? On the base of the databases only, that SQL queries are going to be available. So SQL queries are database dependent. SQL queries are not database independent. If SQL queries are database dependent, and if you are writing SQL queries inside the JDBC program, automatically my JDBC program is dependent on the databases or not? My JDBC program is dependent on the databases or not? That's why the point here, what I said to you clearly, JDBC data persistency, JDBC data persistence mechanism is database dependent mechanism. Database dependent mechanism. Simple example I am telling to you, observe carefully. Simple example, all of you observe carefully. Simple example. For example, I have an enterprise application. In that enterprise application, I provided this data layer, persistence layer by using JDBC. Okay, clear. Up to a few years of time, we have used the same database, same JDBC, that's okay. But as per the new requirements, as per the new requirements, I want to change my database. Oracle to MySQL. I'm changing now. At present, I'm using Oracle. After a few years of time, I want to change my database from Oracle to MySQL. Because of the change, now tell me where I have to change, what I have to provide the changes in my enterprise application now. If I change the database from Oracle to MySQL, what changes I have to provide there? Wherever we have written SQL queries and everywhere we have to go there we have to change the queries. But in how many locations I've used these SQL queries? No, maybe thousands of locations I've used that SQL queries. Then going to the each and every location, there what we have to provide, we need to change the SQL queries in a sense. How much time it will take? No. Understand my point or not? So this is the problem we are able to get when the technology is a database dependent. When the mechanism is database dependent, these are the problems here we are able to get. All of you get my point or not? So we are not expecting, we don't require this database dependent mechanisms. We require what they are, database independent mechanisms. If it is database independent, what advantage we are able to get now? We have prepared our project with one database. Up to few years of time, we have used the same database. But in the next, I want to change my database. Yes, we have to allow to change the database, but without affecting our application. That application must not be affected. Without giving any effect to the application, we have to change the database. In that way, I need to provide what there, some solution. Yes, sir, got it or not? Yeah, for that particular reason only, we have to go with what there, Hibernate. Hibernate is what there, database independent. Use any database, no problem. Nothing is going to be changed in our application. Why? Because we are going to perform all the database operations by using Java methods only, not by using what there, SQL queries. Not by using SQL queries, directly by using what there, Java methods only. Right, sir. That is one point here we have to understand. It's okay, fine. Next one is what? After this, after completion of this, another point here. JDBC data persistence mechanism is able to provide limited support for the transactions. Limited support for what their transactions. See, if you want to talk about the transactions, different levels of transactions are available. Local transactions, global transactions, distributed transactions, different types of transactions are available. So our JDBC is providing transaction support up to local transactions max. Normal transactions, there also still we have to go for hard coded content. Local transactions, it is giving good support up to some parts, but it is not giving support for what their global transactions or distributed transactions now. So that full support is not available for what their transactions. Only limited support is available for what their transactions. So application development is not easy with what there, with the JDBC data persistence mechanism. And if you get my point or not, right, sir. Okay, like this, if you are speaking now, so many drawbacks are available here. All the drawbacks we are going to understand at some other time here. But basic drawbacks here are given. Definitely, JDBC data persistence mechanism is not good, is not providing 100% data persistence in our applications. then immediately we have to talk about what there. To overcome these problems, we have to use an alternative, that is what there, ORM. There we have to go for what there, ORM. All right, sir. ORM. What is this ORM actually? Now tell me. ORM. What is this ORM actually? Already given this part here. ORM is what there? Object relational mapping. What is ORM actually? Object relational mapping. Alright, sir. That's okay. Object relational mapping. What is the requirement of this ORM actually? What is the need of this ORM? What is the requirement of this ORM actually? What is the need of this ORM? I'll give some points to you. Try to understand it clearly. For example, guys, put more concentration. This diagram and this explanation is required for all of you. Hibernate is an implementation of the ORM. Hibernate is the implementation of the ORM. If you are not understanding what is ORM, then there is no meaning to learn Hibernate. If you want to learn Hibernate, first we have to understand what their ORM. What is the requirement to go for this ORM? Listen, all of you listen carefully. For example, I want to prepare an enterprise application. Simple enterprise application here I want to prepare. Observe carefully. This is my enterprise application where I'm going to take a form. What form here I'm going to take now? For example, EMP add form. EMP add form.html, for example. Inside this, what I am able to have there? ENO, ename, esal. Okay. ENO, ename, esal. Next one is I need to provide a button. What button can be provided there? Add button. Now, first of all, now here I'm going to take a servlet component. This is my word there, add servlet. Inside this add servlet, of course, now do getter, do post method is available where request comma or response objects are available. There we have provided some logic. Application logic here we provided. Observe carefully. Alright, sir. Next one is we are able to have a table. Database table is available here. Inside the database table, of course, I'm using some database here, maybe Oracle, maybe MySQL, anything that we can identify some database. Inside the database, we have a table, that is what there, EMP1 table. Inside this EMP1 table, columns are available. What columns there? ENO, ename, esal. Now, it is acting as what there? Table. Inside this, we are able to have some content. Now, let me show the functionality, the overall flow. First, we will provide employee number 111. Employee name, for example, AAA. Employee salary, something else like what there 5,000. Here we provide it. Data we provided like this. When we provide this data, when we click on this add button, automatically a request will come to what? Add servlet. Automatically request will come to what there? Add servlet. In this add servlet, what happened there? Do get method has to be executed, but before that service method must be executed. To execute the service method, here we require two objects. What are the two objects? No, here we can identify request and response objects. Here we need these two objects, request and response objects. Inside this request object, now this is like what I'm telling there, response object. Inside this request object, what data here we are having there? ENO is equal to 111. Then ename is equal to AAA. Then ECL is equal to 5,000. What data is available there inside this one request object? No, ENO is equal to 111, ename is equal to AAA. Then what next one? ECL is equal to what there? 5,000. The data here we provided. Clear. Then after this, by passing these two as a parameters to this do get method, this total do get method is going to be executed. By the execution of this do get method, automatically what happened there? Whatever the data we submitted, the total data will be stored into the database table. What is the data now? Right, recorded data will be stored here. What data here we provided there? 111, AAA, then what next one here? No, 5,000. The total data will be stored. This is the total application. What I have there, some enterprise application or some web application, whatever it may be. Right. Now, here I'm asking one question, sir. Here I'm asking one question. Now try to understand this question here, all of you know. In this overall representation, in the total representation, observe carefully. In this overall representation, how much data we provided here? Three values here I provided. What are the three values now? ENO, ename, ECL. Only these three values here we provided. Observe carefully. But these three values, 111, AAA, 5,000, these three values we represented in how many times in this overall entire architecture? How many times we represent the data? 111, AAA, 5,000. The data here we provided in this entire architecture, in this entire application, how many times we provided these three data? How many times the data we represented here? 3 times we represent the data. Where we are able to represent 3 times? No, one time in a form, second time in what there? Request object. Third time is what there? In the database table. Yes, sir, got my point or not? The data is represented in 3 forms in our enterprise application. What exactly the 3 forms here? No, first we provided data. First we provided data in what form there? Where we provided there? First we provided data in a HTML form. First we provided data in what form here? In a HTML form. This is one type of data representation. Next we provided data in what form here? No, in a server side. This is another form. Last we provided data in what there? In the database. Got it or not? All right, observe carefully. In user interface, when we provide the data, in user interface, when we provide the data, in user interface, when we provide the data representation, the data model, to represent the data, we are going to use a model. The data model is what there? Hypertext model. Now the data representation is what there? Hypertext model. Okay. The data we represent in HTML forms as what there? Hypertext data only. Am I right or not? In HTML forms, how data is going to be provided in the form of hypertext. So the data model is what there? Hypertext data model. Hypertext data model. Okay, fine. When it comes to the server-side application, servlet now, as it is that form data will be stored in the form of request object or not? Later on, we are going to get the data from request object. We are going to store the data in the form of bean object also. Finally, the data will be stored in the form of bean object or not, in the form of request object or not. So finally, the data will be stored in the form of an object or not. So if the data is represented in the form of objects, no, then the data model is what there? Object oriented data model. What is this data model? Can now tell me? Object oriented data model. Everybody understand this point here. Initially, data is represented in hypertext form. So this is what their hypertext data model. Next one, the data is represented in the form of what their object. So this is what their object-oriented data model. At last, the data will be represented in the form of tables or not. In a databases, the data will be represented in the form of tables or not. So this is exactly like what their relational data model. This is exactly like what the relational data model. Right, sir. Good. Oh, now tell me. Not only in this simple example, take any enterprise application. In any enterprise application, first data will be represented in a hypertext model, data model. Later on, the data will be stored in what their objects. So that is what their object-oriented data model. Next one is what their the data is going to be provided in what their relational data model. Think you are the developer, then answer for my questions now. Now you are the Java developer, now answer for my questions now. For example, when I execute this program, what I'm getting there, EMP add form only here I'm getting, where I'm entering the data. Then after that, when I click on what button? Add button. Tell me, you only tell me. When I click on add button, the data which we provided inside this form is coming to the servlet. The data will be stored inside what object? No, request object. Is an automatic operation or not? While converting the data from hypertext data model to object-oriented data model, do you have any participation explicitly? Are you participated in this conversion? Have you done any of this conversion directly from hypertext data model to object-oriented data model? Have you done anything? No, we have not done anything. Internally, servers will do that work. Internally, containers will do that work. We are not going to do that work. Leave it. Not required for us, this conversion. This conversion is not required. No need to think explicitly. Why? Because it would be converted by what their servers or containers or protocols or maybe browsers. Internal concept, not at all required for us. Leave this one. Got it or not? Data is available in what? Object-oriented data model. Next one, the same data we have to be submitted to what? Database table. That means data model, relational data model. Who will perform this conversion? Who will perform this transformation? Is it automatic transformation or developer is doing the transformation? Simple question. What I'm asking there, how we are going to keep data inside the database? Is that developer's responsibility or not? Storing data into the database by getting the data from request object is the responsibility of the developer or not? Developers have to write that code or not? Observe carefully. Converting data from hypertext data model to object-oriented data model is an automatic process where developer participation is not available. But converting data from object-oriented data model to relational data model where developers participation is available or not? Developers have to do some work or not? You have to catch this point here. Understand my point here? So they definitely what is required here? Developers participation is available. Developers work is existed in this case now. Developers have to get the data from objects and they have to keep the data into what their database table. So this conversion is responsibility of the developer. Okay. Please remember this point here in this case now. Next one. How we are able to represent the data in objects now? In object-oriented data model, how we are able to represent the data? By following object-oriented features. Am I right or not? In object-oriented data model, data will be represented in the form of objects by following object-oriented data model. What is this object-oriented data model here? What are these object-oriented features? No, class, object, encapsulation, abstraction, inheritance, polymorphism. By following all these features only, we are going to represent the data in the form of like what their objects. Am I right or not? Leave it. How data will be represented in the relational data model? How data will be represented in the relational data model? It also be by following relational data model rules and regulations or not? It also be like what there? Tables, primary keys, foreign keys, candidate keys. Might be some different operations are available or not? By following these conventions only, we are going to represent the data in the form of table or not? Now tell me, object-oriented data model rules and regulations, relational data model rules and regulations are same or different? If you answer this question, Hibernate is very simple. The way to represent data in object-oriented data model, the way to represent data in the database table, that means in the data relational data model, both are same or different? Still, you are not catching my point. The rules and regulations of representing data in object-oriented data model and the rules and regulations of representing data in a relational data model are same or different? You cannot say same. You have to say different. This is totally different and that is totally different. Here objects, everything is going on with objects. We are going to talk everything in the form of objects. Where everything we are going to talk in the form of what? There records or tables. That structure is different. Here the structure is different. Here inheritance is available. Do you have any inheritance here? Here polymorphism is available. Do you have any polymorphism here? Here primary key foreign key relationship is available. Do you have any such kind of relationship? No. Now tell me, both are different or both are same? No. Definitely both are what? They're different. Both are different. Okay. Point is very much clear. Initially, data is available in the form of objects. Later on, we have to keep the data in what? Their tables, where developer participation is available. Developer aware about it, how to represent the data in the form of objects, but developer is not aware about how to represent the data in the form of tables, for example. Now, my task is very much difficult or not? Okay, even though if I aware both the data models representation, but converting data from one data model to another data model, my participation is available, but my job is very much tough or not? Answer my point here now. Moreover, here what is the point I am telling there? Due to the different conventions of the object-oriented data model and relational data model, due to the differences in the conventions of representing data in object-oriented data model, relational data model, automatically some mismatches are going to be created. Mismatches are going to be created between object-oriented data model and relational data model. The mismatches between object-oriented data model and relational data model will reduce data persistence in our enterprise applications. Come again, what is the point I said to you? Object-oriented data model is having its own approach of representing data. Relational data model is having its own approach of representing data. Both the data models are having differences in their conventions. These differences are providing what their mismatches between both the data models. These mismatches are able to reduce data persistence in the enterprise application. Are you getting my point or not? Data models wise, different approaches are available to represent data. These differences are creating mismatches between the two data models. These mismatches are able to reduce data persistence in our enterprise applications. But being the developer, what I have to do? Being the developer, what I have to do? I have to improve the data persistence in our applications or not? I have to improve data persistence or not? How we are going to improve data persistence here? All right, exactly. To improve data persistence, we have to establish the sync between both the data models. To establish the sync between both the data models. That means to establish the sync between both the data models, there we have to use ORM. In other words, what I am telling to you, both the data models are having some mismatches or not. If I reduce that mismatches, if I provide solution for these mismatches, now data persistence will be very good. To reduce that mismatches, to provide solutions for that mismatches, we need to go for ORM. To avoid that mismatches, to improve data persistence in this both the data models, there we have to use what there? ORM. What is that ORM? Object relational mapping. Simple. If we provide mapping between object relational data model conventions, relational data model conventions, if we provide mapping, no, automatically problems will be solved. Automatically data persistence will be improved clearly. This is exactly the requirement of what there? ORM, object relational mapping. Yes, sir, all of you get my point or not? This only the central point. For what purpose we are going to understand Hibernate? If you ask this question, no, you have to explain this entire content. Just 2 minutes of time I am giving to you. Try to analyze the point here, what I explained up to now. In this overall diagram, what exactly the points I explained to you, now try to analyze it. What I given there, information to you, now try to analyze the point here. Simple content. The point is what? Data representation is different in object-oriented data model and in a database. That means like what the relational data model. Whenever we are having differences in the approaches of representing data in both the data models, mismatches are going to be created. That mismatches are able to reduce data persistence. But where to improve the data persistence, we have to provide solutions for the mismatches. To provide solutions for the mismatches, no, there we have to go for object relational mapping. If we provide mapping between both objects and relations, no, automatically solutions we are able to get for the mismatches. When we are providing solutions for the mismatches, automatically data persistence will be improved inside our enterprise applications. Right, because of this reason only we have to go for what there? ORM, object relational mapping. Yes, sir, got it or not? Let me complete this document here. Then after that, I'm able to provide the content. Try to understand it clearly. ORM is what there? Object relational mapping. Right, sir. Let me provide the information. No? In general, in an enterprise applications, we will represent the data. We will represent the data in the following data models. In the enterprise applications, in an enterprise applications, we will represent the data. We will represent the data in the following data models. What are the data models? No, first one is what there? Hypertext data model. Most of the people are not consider this particular part here. Why? Because our ORM is required in between object-oriented data model and relational data model only. So people are not going to consider what their hypertext data model. But here I given the importance of it anyway. Next one is what there? After this, object-oriented data model. Object-oriented data model. After this, object-oriented data model, relational data model, relational data model. Right, sir. Hypertext data model, object-oriented data model, and next one is what there? Relational data model. They are the three data models here we are getting. All right, sir. Good. In the enterprise applications, developers are not required to concentrate on the conversion from the hypertext data model to the object-oriented data model. Why? Because it will be performed, this conversion, this type of conversion, or it will be performed by the servers or containers. It will be performed by the servers and containers internally. Is that clear? In the enterprise applications, developers are not required to concentrate on the conversions from hypertext data model to the object-oriented data model. Why? Because it will be performed by the servers and containers internally, where a developer is not required to think about it. Okay. Once servers are performing this operation, in a sense, definitely that must be in effective mode. The conversion is going to be happening in effective mode. Understand it now. Next one is what? Next one here. In the enterprise applications, developers must concentrate on the conversion from object oriented data model to the relational data model. In the enterprise applications, developers must concentrate on the conversions from the object oriented data model to the relational data model, where developers must participate. Developers must have concentration on this particular one. Got you. Now we have observed this point here. All right, sir. In the enterprise applications, or maybe in general, the data representation is different. The data representation is different in both the data models. And both the data data representation is different in both the data models, and which are having the different conventions to represent the data. All right, sir. These different conventions are able to create mismatches between both the data models. Here, the mismatches between both the data models, will reduce data persistence in the enterprise applications. Right, sir? Observe carefully. What's the point here I'm telling to you? In general, the data representation is different in both the data models, and which are having the different conventions to represent data. These different conventions are able to create mismatches between both the data models. Yet the mismatches between both the data models will reduce data persistence in the enterprise applications. Got it or not? Right, sir. For the sake of our clarity purpose, I need to take a diagram here. Now, okay. Let me copy this. Now, just I want to provide this diagram here where. All right, sir. In an enterprise applications. Okay, fine. Data models. Right. Now, okay. I want to provide this one here. I want to provide this diagram. All right. Next one is what there. Models will reduce the data persistence in the enterprise applications. Good. In the enterprise applications, all of you observe carefully. In the enterprise applications, to improve data persistence, we have to avoid the mismatches between the data models. We have to avoid the mismatches between data models. Here, to avoid the mismatches between the data models, we have to use ORM tools. There's an introduction part for what there, ORM. All right, what is this ORM? What exactly the meaning of ORM? ORM is what? Observe carefully. ORM is a theory. What I'm telling there, ORM is what there is a theory or is an approach. Now we can understand as a design principle. Anything here we can provide. ORM is what there is an approach, is a design approach. A design approach, or simply we can say that it is a methodology, in other words. Okay, ORM is a theory or a design approach, or maybe anything. ORM is what there is a theory. Okay, ORM is a theory or a design approach. It is able to provide, it is able to provide, it is able to provide the mapping between, it is able to provide the mapping between the object oriented data model elements and the relational data model elements either through XML file or through annotations. Sir, now try to understand it. What is the meaning of this ORM? ORM is a design approach. It is a theory. It is an abstract, not like abstraction. It is a design principle, simply speaking. It is able to provide the mapping between the object-oriented data model elements and the relational data model elements either through XML file or through what their annotations. Then this is the meaning of like what their ORM. I'm going to provide that mappings here. What exactly the mappings here we are going to have there? Object-oriented data model elements. Object-oriented data model elements. Similarly, relational data model elements. Object-oriented data model elements, and next one is what the relational data model elements. Now again, I'm going to provide these elements that there should be mapping between these concepts. Observe carefully, these mappings are also required for us. First of all, I'm going to say class. In object-oriented data model, what I'm providing there, class. In object orientation, class. In relational data model, that should be what there, a table. If I provide a mapping between class and a table, automatically data transformation is very simple or not? Understand my point here? 100 classes I have written, 100 tables I have written, but which class data on which table we want to store, we don't know as of now. But if we prepare a mapping file, inside the mapping file, if we put the mapping between this class, this table, this class, this table, like this, if we put now, automatically the data transformation is very simple or not? That exactly Hibernate is doing. That exactly ORM is doing. Understand my point here? All right. Now class and a table. Okay. Not only this mapping here. Inside the class, observe carefully. ID property, or else before that, what I am telling there, object should be mapped with what there. What is going to be mapped here? We can understand it is like what the record. A class is equal to what? A table. An object in our Java application is equal to what there? A record in the database table. Equalities I am telling you now. Next one is what there? After this, for every class, in every class, definitely one thing is an identity property. ID property is going to be available. Say for example, if we take employee, where employee number is an identity or not? Come on guys. If take employee class now, where employee number is what there? An identity property. If we take product ID is an identity property or not? If we take a customer ID is an identity property or not? Account number is an identity property or not? In this way, identity properties are available. Now in our class, ID property, then if it comes to the relational data model, this is like what their primary key column. Yes, sir. Now in class ID property is available, but in the database now, what is available here? Primary key column is available. Next one is normal property is available in object-oriented data model, but inside the relational data model, what is available here? No, normal column is available. Yes, sir. All of you get my point or not? Like this, here we are able to have so many number of mappings here we are able to provide. Now, ORM is providing mapping between object-oriented data model elements, relational data model elements like this. How this mapping is going to be provided here? Either through XML file or through what their annotations. Either through XML file or through what their annotation. That mapping details are going to be provided. This is exactly the meaning of like what their object-oriented data model and relational data model, their mismatches and the solution for these mismatches clearly. Sir, got it or not? Okay, fine. All right, sir. But still my question is what there? In this overall discussion, we are saying that in general, in the data representation is different in both the data models and which are having different conventions to represent data. These different conventions are able to create what? Between both the data models, mismatches are available or not? In general, what are the various mismatches that we are able to get in between both the data models? Understand it first. How ORM is providing solution for these mismatches. We have to understand it. Then after that, we are going to start for their ORM implementation tools. That's my point, but still my ORM introduction is not completed. Just a high-end introduction I have given there. Now I want to discuss more about like what the mismatches between both the data models. What are the mismatches between both the data models? How ORM is able to provide solution for both the models, that we are going to understand clearly. Right, now observe carefully. Here the point here what I am telling to you. In general, in the enterprise applications, we will get the following mismatches. In general, in the enterprise applications, we will get the following mismatches between the object-oriented data model, and the relational data model. In general, in the enterprise applications, we will get the following mismatches between the object-oriented data model and the relational data model. What are the various things here we are able to get? First one is granularity mismatch. That's it. First one is what there? Granularity mismatch. Next one is what there? After completion of this granularity mismatch, next one is subtypes mismatch. Subtypes mismatch. Subtypes mismatch. Next one is associations mismatch. Associations mismatch. After this, identity mismatch. Like this here, we are having what there? Number of mismatches now. What are the various mismatches that are available here? First one is what there? Granularity mismatch. Next one is what there? Subtypes mismatch. Next one is what there? Associations mismatch. Lastly, what we are getting there? Identity mismatch. Not only these mismatches, no, there we can identify so many other mismatches also, but not required to go for all these mismatches here. Just only these mismatches are sufficient to understand what is the requirement of like what there? Granularity mismatch. Is that good or not? Now, here we have to understand the point clearly. What exactly the meaning of granularity mismatch? How we are able to get solution for this granularity mismatch? Understand this clearly, all of you know. Granularity mismatch. Observe carefully. What is this granularity mismatch here? Now, first of all, tell me what is granularity? Before understanding this mismatch, you know, what is granularity? What you are thinking about this granularity? Nothing, sir. A general word I am asking there. For example, in the classroom, how many students are available? Simple example.